Face coverings, masks, and aerosol particle emission, as the CDC and the scientific community still trying to nail down what the viral load is in aerosol particles, how long it lasts, and can the disease be transmitted that way. We think so, but there is still a lot of debate on how transmissible it is in that venue. Efficacy of masks and face coverings in controlling outward aerosol particle emission from expiratory activities. So we're learning a lot more. We've talked about previously stuff like this. Mask effectiveness.
Day 4, no mask, trial 1. Start.
Stay healthy, people. Stay healthy, people. Stay healthy, people.
So the experiment is a visualization of droplet emission, and we compared no mask versus masked speakers. We had speakers say, stay healthy, people, without the mask, and we used that as a baseline. And we then put different masks on and visualized the effects of that mask that should reduce droplet emission when you speak. So when we speak, we see this evolution of flashes.
Look how gross you are, chat. Every time you speak, you're putting out all these particles into the ether around you. Ugh.
In the video frames, which we then go in and analyze how many flashes do we see, basically how many particles do we see. This is the no mask case. This was a cotton case. This one is a surgical mask. So you can see it actually does really well. This one here is fleece.
Neck fleece, neck gaiter. There's still tons of people using these, which I have a real problem with. These like scarves, neck fleeces, I think do a worse job and actually help spread it because of the number of particles they actually create.
Neck fleece. And what's noticeable here is that the number of particles is actually bigger than the no mask case. We attribute this to the fleece, the textile, breaking up those big particles into many little particles. They tend to hang around longer in the air. They can get carried away easier in the air.
Right, so there's still a lot of debate about the role of certain sized particles, right, and what's necessary in terms of a viral load to infect people. But what we do know is the smaller particles live in the air longer. So when you have like a scarf or something pretty porous, it actually takes your large droplets, chat, that you're grossly putting out into the ether when you enunciate, especially when your peas are popping and you're spittling into the room around you. Those, if you're infected, droplets tend to crash out pretty quickly. But if you have one of these gross like bandanas, neck gaiter things covering your face, it takes all those big droplets and basically, like a molecular sieve, partitions them into a bunch of little droplets. And now you have a bunch of longer lasting droplets in the air. Again, we're still a little unclear on the role of those very small droplets versus medium versus large droplets. My guess is this is much worse than this because these last a lot longer in the air.
So this might actually be counterproductive to wear such a mask. So it's not the case that any mask is better than nothing. There are some masks that actually hurt rather than do good.
So we watched this video on mask effectiveness, suggesting that the things like scarves and neck gaiters and bandanas are actually worse than no mask because they take big particles, which drop out of the air and turn them into small. This came out just yesterday, or a few days ago. Scientific Reports, open access. Mask wearing is intended to protect others from exhaled virus-containing particles. Few studies have examined particle emission by mask wearers into the air. That's kind of what we watched here, right? And this notion that the neck fleece creates more particles than the no mask at all. But this is a different group who's measuring outward emissions of aerosol particles. Both surgical masks and unvented KN95s even without fit testing, reduced the outward emission rates by 90 to 74%. They similarly decreased the outward particle emission of a coughing super emitter. Shedding of non-expiratory micron-scale particulates from cellulosic fibers and homemade cotton fabric masks confounded explicit determination of their efficacy at reducing expiratory particle emission. Did I say what? Shedding of the small particulates from cotton fabric masks confounded explicit determination, meaning they couldn't really figure out their efficacy. Interesting. Breathing, talking, coughing, jaw movement. So this is pretty interesting. This is looking at the number of particles in different devices. So this is a quantified approach. Let's see here. This is a more quantified approach to, let's see the different types here. All right, SLT is single layer cotton t-shirt. DL is double layer cotton. Single layer paper towel, lol, is SLP. So SLP, SLT, and DLT. SLP, SLT, DLT. So the single layer cotton, actually across the board, within air bars at least, gives the most number of particles. That would be bad if it's particle transmitted. Yeah, Coxike. So this was a Duke study a couple months ago, but this is a different, slightly more quantified look. This is the like single layer cotton or neck gaiter kind of thing that's suggested, but this is a more quantified now research coming out of a different laboratory suggesting something similar. Right? Like look at no mask, look at single layer cotton. Oof. Right? And the y-axis is logarithmic, so even though it looks slightly higher, it can be a big difference. Now I will say, like, the box that you're looking at is, with the little arms on it, is like the spread of the data, and so it's not appropriate to say that the single layer here is worse than the no mask, because they're within the same region. Their boxes sort of overlap. So within air, they're more or less the same. What's true is that surgical N95 and single layer paper towel, at least in breathing, is better. Less clear for jaw movement and coughing. Particle emission rate from breathing, talking, coughing, and jaw movement for 4 participants. Coughing clearly the worst. Manual rubbing?
Yeah.
Manual rubbing is taking the mask. Wait, hold on. You guys ready? ASMR incoming. Okay, so this is manual rubbing. Okay, so it's when you take the mask and actually like rub it on your hands and then go and transmit it other ways. Our results clearly indicate that wearing surgical masks or KN95 respirators reduce the outward particle emission rates. However, for homemade cotton, the emission rate is either unchanged or increased by as much as 492% compared to no mask at all. Wow. That's not good. So this looks like we really need to ramp up our production of N95 and surgical masks and get those into the hands of people. It's true that here they're not measuring anything with viri or viruses, just particles in general. Mask wearing will reduce emission of virus-laden aerosols and droplets associated with these activities, unless appreciable shedding of the viable virus on mask fibers occurs. That seems unlikely, because with fibers it would fall out of the air much more quickly, I think. The inertial impaction should increase as particle size increases. Our observations are consistent with suggestions that mask wearing can help in mitigating pandemics associated with respiratory disease and highlight the importance of regular changing of disposable masks and washing, and suggest that special care must be taken when removing and cleaning the masks. Right, so wash your mask often. Double cloth, better than single cloth, but both of those might not be a lot better than no mask at all, except for the largest particles. Now, what is still unknown is exactly the role of large particle, medium particle, small particle, but large particles fall out of the air faster than small particles, right? So while like the total amount of virus escaping might be less with a cloth mask, if what's coming out is in smaller particles that live longer, right? And that is a mode of transmission for the virus, then those two things might offset and mask wearing might be just as bad as no mask at all. I would not go that far. Jury's still out. What this is more or less conclusive of, and seems obvious to us, of course, is that these surgical masks, right, even without adjustment, are far better than anything else. Right? Talking, coughing, like statistically, right, it's an order of magnitude less for surgical masks than any of the other masks pretty much, which is important.